anything to sign in over there, or?
Yeah, I was saying, if everyone could help me out so that I can expense all of this pizza, just your name and your company, no email needed or anything. Yeah, this list for me, that way when I expense it, I can prove I fed people, just claim I did.
Blings my...
We're going to go ahead and get kicked off here. So I'm Eric Sling. I am a DevOps consultant with VMware Professional Services, the INA group, if you know what that is. This is our 5th Jenkins Meetup. We try to do this the first Thursday of every month. We skipped last month because with fiction and everything, I just couldn't get anything put together. Sorry for guys that wanted to do that. Oh well, get your back. Ryan Campbell has graciously drove from Austin. He is with Cloud. You've been with CloudView since like the beginning, right? So he's a burner, I guess you could call him. You, I believe, were the engineer that worked on the Debit Cloud stuff. So he is a container guru, and he's going to talk to us about pipeline and Docker. Docker's been one of the things that's come up all the time when we want to say we want to talk about in the future. It's been one of the key ones that keeps coming. So
good.
This will be good. And just, just want to thank all you guys for coming. We got a good showing this time. I will post the recording of this weekend. We're recording the WebEx so that you get the slides. Take a copy of the slides.
Oh, sure.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah.
And obviously want to thank VMware for we are still hiring. Get up here. You got chops, and you're looking to consult. Don't put me my cards up here. Take it away.
All right. Thanks, Eric. That was a great introduction. I have some bad news. I was promoted into engineering management about a year and a half ago. So all that about being a container guru.
What else do you want to talk about?
But still remember some stuff, and I kind of know what we're working on. So so that's cool. Oh, that's right. Okay, great. Let's see, anything else to say? I guess kind of get into what CloudView is here, and you probably all know that, so I won't spend too much time on it. But yeah, I want to talk about continuous delivery with Jenkins pipeline and Docker. So those, and I'm going to have some live coding exercises. You've heard of a fire exercise. Well, this is kind of similar. So we're going to try to see how it goes, but I think it'll work well. So we're going to go through a little bit of introductory, the terms we're using, and what we mean by CI/CD, which you guys know, and then a little bit about pipelines and workflow, and then our real pipelines, and go to Jenkins and Docker. And so I want to talk to you kind of what is interesting that I think is interesting that's going on in the Jenkins and CloudView community. So this is it from a basically a DC3. It's a Russian version of a DC3. And so I didn't have my notes out here. So yeah, it T28. Oh wow, didn't write it down. Anyway, but basically it's like a DC3. It's from the 40s. And so you got the two what is 6, and then all the dials and whatnot. It looks pretty complicated. But then this is a kit of an Airbus A380. So a little bit different interface. What is the main interface in this? The keyboard, right? And I guess like a bunch of flat screens, right? So the A380 has on board 1 billion lines of code. And there's just 100 million in the avionics system alone. And each engine on an A380 gives a terabyte of data every 30 minutes, I think. Wow. So it's a marvel of software engineering. It's a marvel of aircraft, aerospace engineering. Yeah, I'm sure. But the point is that like software has become a critical piece of the space industry. right? I mean, it's like the defining competitive advantage, well, one of the competitive advantages here. And but that transition is happening all across every industry, right? I mean, if you think about it, you know, the industry with Netflix basically completely changing the game there, and with the hotel industry being basically restructured by Airbnb, the taxi industry being restructured by Uber, and all the companies are using software as the way that their competitive advantage, right? And I think that like this is a structural change in our economy that's going on. Is that software is the way that that most of you more of the value that we transmit and receive is in the form of software. And so like the companies that win are companies that can deliver the best software the fastest. And often times the way to develop the best software is to deliver it more quickly, so you get that feedback and response. And that's really what I and CD are about. And so you know, if this is the new way of things, if companies now can compete mainly by delivering software, then automation in that process is critical, right? And so you know, the standard automation loop is right here. I won't go through this. You guys are experts in this area, but that feedback loop that we're concerned with, because when we talk about the difference between CI and CD, CI is continuous integration and CD is continuous delivery. I assume everyone knows what CI is, but it's the feedback loop that happens between a developer and basically their tools that tell them if this is going to test. Whereas continuous delivery is the feedback loop that happens when you deliver the change all the way to a customer. And more specifically, continuous delivery is delivering the smallest of change as quickly as you can, right? So in contrast of having a release cycle of 9 months, we ideally would have multiple releases per day. And the only way that such a change in process is possible is if we completely automate that cycle. That's where kind of where we're coming today. That's what we mean by continuous delivery is bring change to our change our users in such small increments that we do on a daily basis. And because we're doing that, we have to automate the entire process. So kind of the idea, and I would say that this is not limited to web apps. It's applicable to mobile apps and desktop apps. I have plenty of desktop apps that are constantly updating themselves, and I'm sure you do too. So again, this is actually, let me step back before I get too far. Assuming all of your background, so I can ask. So everyone is a Jenkins user except for one Hudson user. Is that right? But, okay. What's that? Two. Okay, good. Okay. How many of you would classify yourselves as a Jenkins administrator? Raise your hand. Okay. You would classify yourselves as more like a user, like maybe you're an engineer, mostly, or a software developer, but you use Jenkins because it's a part of doing your job. Right. Okay. What's that? Plumber. Oh, okay. All right. You're a plumber. Great. Excellent.
Maybe we'll go pipeline.
Oh, oh, cool. Okay. Well, like pipeline or?
Yeah. Pipeline.
Great.
He's using the product.
Okay. All right. Well, so then this may be a little well known for you here, but
I only do Jenkins.
I won't go deep into this little icon right here, but what this is about is like, from a vision perspective, is that there's thousands of tools that we use to deliver software. But I think what's unique about Jenkins is that Jenkins interoperates with all of these. They don't necessarily interoperate with each other, but Jenkins interoperates with them. So Jenkins, you can think of it as, and I'm sure it is in yours, is basically Jenkins is the hub for all of these tools working together. So so that's the big idea. But then, so I want to kind of make sure you know when I talk about the Jenkins platform, I'm on it tonight. I want you to know what it is. So it's all that you saw on that previous screen with the open source part. Then we also add additional. This is basically a proprietary offering on top of open source Jenkins, and so. So if you're a CloudBees customer, then you also get access to this additional functionality for improving performance, scalability, and reliability. And we've got this kind of new idea of certified plugins, to where we validate a set of plugins that are rock solid and that we are experts in. And then we also layer on some additional layers, such as the monitoring and alerting, so kind of the enterprise features you might expect out of an enterprise level product. And we add all that on to our technical support, which is kind of you would expect, 24 hours a day with time, that kind of thing. So that's my commercial for the day, and I'm sure the sales guys in the back will be happy to tell you more. But anyway. So that's kind of like all right, so we talked a little bit about CI/CD and CJP. I really want to get into the meat of it now, which for me is the pipeline stuff. I want to make sure that you come away from this talk with a good working vocabulary of pipeline and how pipeline works with Docker, and more in general, the Jenkins Docker ecosystem looks like. And then we'll get into some goodies at the end there. So we've kind of already talking about how we have these pipes that basically this process of delivering change in the form of commits that become builds that get tested and staged for testing and then deployed, and so forth. Underneath what this actually looks like, at least in many environments, well, actually, what this is looking like, right, is that here I have my commit, but then I might have a need to branch off multiple lines of testing, for example. I might want to kick off my performance tests, my deck analysis, and my browser-based tests. And then once all that's done, then maybe I want to only then deploy to the UAT environment, maybe with some kind of manual approval or something like that. I know that we ship our installers. We have a automated process, and we want someone with authority to basically say, okay, yes, we really want to ship this. Anyone can kick it off, but only a few people can approve it. So we need to do things in parallel. We need to maybe branch sometimes. But definitely parallel looping. We may want to retry something if something is prone to failure. We may want to retry it. We will starting without restarting the whole thing. So the idea of checkpoints. Well, I'm kind of conflating these. There's an idea of checkpoints of being able to start at a certain place without having to start all over. That's a checkpoint. And then a restart is handling a Jenkins restart. So we can upgrade Jenkins while builds are running, or do other maintenance to Jenkins while builds continue to run. Right, so those are kind of the what we've found that people really want and need in a delivery pipeline. So, how many people are actually using Jenkins pipeline today?
Which are you referring to, workflow or pipeline plugin?
I'm referring to workflow, yeah. You're using the pipeline, the other?
We're using the plugin view.
The pipeline view, right, okay. So that what you're referring to is this one right here, isn't it? Yeah. Right. And frankly, this is how people have been building pipelines in Jenkins for the past, I think Jenkins has been around for coming up on 9 years now, something like that. Anyway, but yeah, definitely like 6 years, 7 years. So what they do is they chain together many jobs, and then you can use, parameterized trigger plug, I think, to pass state between them. And there are some plugins like that let you, create chains using some kind of DSL and then provide different views. And so it's all kind of disjointed, and there's a whole variety of things out there. And I guess there's a lot of limitations to this approach in that you basically have to go out and figure out all the plugins that you need, and it's kind of like a secret recipe that is shared between the top of the top Jenkins administrators. So we saw this as a problem at CloudBees, and we knew that if we didn't fix it, that Jenkins wouldn't be like what people used to do, CD, in the future. So so that's, yeah, so this is, right, like a magic recipe that blows up in your face occasionally, is in Jenkins in 2013. Some fun to address those limitations and use what we call Jenkins pipeline. It used to be called Jenkins workflow, but we just call Jenkins pipeline today. So the idea is that instead of like lots of small jobs that are kind of chained together in different configuration screens and so forth, we have a single script that contains like the entire pipeline in one file. And it's designed to solve the restart problem. So this is kind of a continuation passing system. There's some technical detail there, like every time it executes a line, it serializes that state so that if Jenkins restarts or whatnot, we can pick up immediately where we left off, all that kind of cool stuff. And then we have like this concept called stages, which allow us to kind of delineate different parts of the workflow, which we'll get into. Supports elasticity and live interaction, that input. So we'll demonstrate all this, and then obviously it's all got to support extensibility, right? So it's got to work with how many more? 12. Whatever. It's got to be extensible, and deliver on this whole idea of process as code, meaning that the process that I deliver the software with is stored along with the code that's being delivered. It's like an artifact of the source code. So now to do the live coding exercise, I want to demonstrate this for you.
Can you do me a favor? Can you mirror your screens? Because they're getting what's down here. Oh, it is now. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So let's see how it goes. All right. So where I'd like to start is I've got a local Jenkins instance here. That 2.16 or whatever. I just downloaded it from Jenkins.org. So this is all open source stuff. It's pretty much out of the box, actually. Everything I'm going to show you here. Yeah, let me just click the Hello World, right? Hello project. Let's make a pipeline project. And you can see all of this is pretty much similar to what the build triggers part. Very actually the same as what you get. But then there's no or whatnot, and there's no publishers or anything you get. Well, there's several different things you get, but anyway, you have a script here. So simply what we're going to do is we're going to do the standard echo hello world. And this, let's just press save, and then we'll tell you what we're seeing. So, okay, we've proven that it's like any other programming language. We can do hello world, right? But what happened was this right here. This is called a pipeline step. Every line, basically, more or less, every line in a script is a step, much like a build step in Jenkins, right? So, and actually, some of the implementations are exactly the same. All right, so we've got a hello world. But what we really want to do is build software, right, or like something similar to that. So I've got a project that I have to clone in GitHub. Oops. Oh yeah, I did bookmark it. Okay, so demo. Here we go. So we got a cool program that prints out some ASCII art. Okay, so it's going to be the software we're going to continuously deliver today, over and over and over again. All right, so I'm going to fork this repo, and I'm really doing this live. So, all right, so now I've got a repo here, and so let me take this, and so we're just all the things, the things CD, right? Something like that. And we're going to make this a pipeline project. There we go. So we already did kind of the hello world, but in order to actually get code, we need to say a slave. Now, what you saw, that echo hello world, that was actually run just like inside Jenkins. And that's what we need to know about one big difference with workflow jobs or pipeline jobs is that initial context is Jenkins itself, not necessarily running immediately on a build slave or a build agent like you usually are. And why it's important is because most complex or many complex build pipelines involve multiple means. I mean, you know, for platform support, parallelism, or what have you. So we're starting out without anything. So in order to get like a workspace and all the things that you kind of need in Jenkins, we have to acquire one. So I think I'm going to use the label Mac. I've got some build machines that are basically just local processes. But anyway, there they are. So they're using the Mac label. And so this gives us basically a machine that provisions the machine maybe or uses an existing one, but whatever. It's just like tying it to a label in Jenkins. We're saying run on this machine, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use a git clone, and we're just going to, I think we can just do this. I'm saying git clone this repo. Let's, pretty sure this works. Okay, right, so now we've got some source code. So just like a git checkout. So I'll go a little bit faster here. So we're getting git checkout, and then let's see, we want to basically build the software. So software, I'm basically going to use the shell step, which is very similar to like the Jenkins execute shell step. And I can just type in whatever I want here. So I'm going to type in bash, and I know like the structure of this. So the program is just all the things.sh. So I'm just going to say all the things.sh. And I'm going to go ahead and like speed this up and say let's send the output, but also store it in an output file. And just like you might in a normal Jenkins environment, I want to archive that output file. So to like save it off, like, cause that's the whole point of building most software, right? Is that you run a build and then you tell Jenkins or what archive, what to save off so that we can access it later. Okay.
Transfers it back to the master, right?
Thank you, exactly. So that's what's going to happen is that the output file is going to be transferred from the slave back to the master and stored as a part of the build.
Just using the JNLP protocol or whatever.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so it's exactly like the way the old archive stuff works. So the standard archive stuff works. All right, so we're going to see if we didn't break anything. And great. So look, there we go. It worked. So the program ran, compiled, and we also got something archived here, right? So that's basically like you might do. And then there's all sorts of things that you can do in here. If we go to this pipeline syntax right here, this is kind of a place where you can experiment and kind of see all of what's available. So there's that echo one, but there's also the extended email, so we can, say, email this to rcampbell@cloudbees.com, and say, build, I don't know, and done. And so then when we generate Groovy, we can kind of see, okay, so this is how this is kind of what we can then take and paste into our but to be honest with you, I'm making a major mistake here, and it is that I'm putting this configuration into Jenkins. Really putting this configuration with my code, the rest of the source code of my software, right? So let's fix that. So we're going to just cut that, and I'm going to go into my fancy GitHub editor and say create new file. We're going to use the Jenkins. This is just kind of it's an easier way to work with it, so that same default, I guess. What's the term? I can't remember, but put it in there, and we're going to commit that sucker without a commit message. And then what we're going to do here is come back and change the pipeline script from SCM and say, instead, we want you to pull this from Git, and then we're just going to copy that. So we're basically saying, instead of us entering this directly in, we want to pull the pipeline script from SCM, and you can see here, here's where we say the Jenkins file, right? So now when we do this, well, the first thing it'll do is check out our pipeline script and continue to execute it. But one thing I should point out is it's a bad pattern to have your Git repo targeted in there. So Jenkins knows where you're checking this out from. So we've got a special little shortcut to check the SCM, so you don't have to hard code that into the script, right?
So initially, to get this, does it have to check out the whole thing on the master, or just check the Jenkins file?
Yeah, for Git to work properly, it has to clone the whole repo.
So then on the master, and then send it over to the slave?
It clones it on the master and then on the slave. Yeah.
Really? It has to form up the build itself from Jenkins file, right?
Exactly. In order to know what the build steps are, it has to. So
defining the nodes in there, so it doesn't know where it's going to go propagate.
Right.
Use version.
Huge project, we will check out a lot of code.
Yeah.
I'm sure it does a checkout, right? Just a one top.
The repository that it clones the whole repository, or just the app in question?
So all of this is cached. I'm not sure if it's a shallow clone or what, to be honest with you. I imagine it is a shallow clone. All this is cached on the Jenkins master, so it's not like it's checking every time you run your build. But there we go. So we've got a Jenkins file, and it's properly checking things out. Let me. I kind of wanted to show you like how the parallel stuff works. So you know, if we kind of continue editing this thing, what we do is let's say like that we want to compile on a single box and then parallelize our testing, right? So one way we could do that is after we say this is the compiling, we can besides archiving, we can also do something called stashing. Like allows you to stash maybe a directory or a bunch of stuff in Jenkins, and it's not an official part of the build, so it doesn't accrue in your build history and count against you like that. But it's just stored for the purposes of the build. And we can stash some given set of includes and give a name like script or wait. That's
From like the Git stash.
Exactly. It's kind of like a Git stash. You're just setting it aside without making it official. And actually, let me do all the things, H, and we'll call it a script. We'll make a parallel block here. This becomes very important when, there we go. Important when you have like computation intensive stuff to do or stuff that takes a long time, but it's the same stuff here that we would be doing. So we're gonna basically with parallel is this is a step that accepts multiple arguments, which are the kind of the blocks that are going to be run in parallel. So first, or no, not first, but block 1 is the label that we're giving it, and we give it a node like that, and we say, and then let's do a sleep of 20 seconds, and then let's do a run the script for all things, right? And then the second block 2, let's sleep for 20 seconds, and then let's just do a date. And sleep is also a built-in kind of thing, built-in build steps. So this is not bash or something like that. And let's just see if.
So we're going to execute the parallel block after node block?
Exactly. So this is in order. And I forgot something. Thank you for. So what's going to happen? Let's talk through that. Actually, I forgot a lot of stuff here. We need, if we want to do anything, we've got to have another our build agent here. So let's move this stuff inside that. But yeah, so basically it's going to push in a slave, do these things here, and stash the script. But in order to run it, we need to unstash the script. So we're going to take all these files here and kind of dump them in our current directory. And so.
Can the block be nested inside of the first node block, or does it need to be a top-level element?
Could, but usually when you want to do a parallel block, it's because you want to run on multiple nodes. But yes, absolutely, it could be done inside a node. But it's tricky to do parallel things inside of a workspace because, I mean, like a workspace, you kind of only want one process messing with that workspace at one time. So what we're going to get here is where you can see we're provisioning 2 different nodes. We're going to get 2 different workspaces, potentially on different machines, and so yeah, let's do that.
So if they do end up colliding the same machine, so you only have one label, machine associated with that label. So
Jenkins will only run one of these on a machine at once. A given can only run one build at once, right? So that's still true. But so these would queue up if I only had one. But go ahead. All right, yes, thank you for clarifying executors. Yes, you're right. So an executor, the number of executors on a build machine determines how many processes or how many builds can run at a single time. So in this case, as is good practice, have one executor per build machine. And you had a question I didn't answer. Okay, all right.
He was trying to equate nodes and labels.
Right.
And that's a label that's assigned to more than one node.
Thank you. This is great. Yes, exactly. So I have 2 nodes, one named OSX, OS10, and one named OSX2. They both have the Mac label. Okay? So that's another good practice. I mean, if we kind of back to, you know, what's the you want to tie your, you want to treat your build machines as cattle, not pets. Right? So pets, you give names, and it's Fluffy, and Fluffy goes on a walk at 5 o'clock. But with like, they have a number, and they all got to get through the chute. You know, it's like treat them all the same, right? So you want to treat your build machines like cattle, so that if you one, you pull another steer in, and you're going, right? So let's see, going through our little script here. So we've got our parallel block. We're going to pursue Mac nodes and unstash the script and run it and hope everything kind of works. And then we'll figure out what to do. So let's now. Right. Oh, it's parallel. See, we're using both nodes, and they're both sleeping for 20 seconds. So I think it ran this output the first time, and hopefully twice.
But theoretically, you could have had something running already on that other node, and it could have used, say, 2 executors on the one node, and it could have put them both in the same node, right? So the question is,
use separate workspaces.
yeah, they would have separate workspaces, right?
I would assume.
State your question.
You can parallel jobs on a given node. I was trying to remember, and this is something that was on the test, I thought, but how it means you need to have a workspace for parallelization. Right.
Yes, that's true. There were multiple executors on a node. They would have unique workspaces, but they might not have unique process spaces, which is the problem of sharing multiple executors on a node. That's but yeah, does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
I don't want to derail too much. Sorry, I just
okay.
Trying to make sure I understood you should not assume that you'll end up using the same workspace.
Right. But I would say in general, you don't have to worry about that stuff here. So yeah, you follow the best practice, which is only one executor per node. All that works perfectly, and that's kind of the best practice here. So let me just run this again, and we'll see it. It's a single job. That's all of the things CD, or a single build that's being run in parts across this. And I'm going to, while that's running, I'm going to kill Jenkins and demonstrate one of the coolest things about this. Said, Jenkins said, long live Jenkins.
Stop Jenkins! Oh my God!
So now let's see, please ignore the ugly, I don't know what that is. And so, oh, finally Jenkins is back up. Wonder what happened to our build. Right. And look, it's still, it's still running. That's amazing. Why were there 3 displays? Yeah. So what I think you saw was when basically the flyweight executor, right? So like I told you, that workflow itself is actually running on Jenkins, and so what happens is when Jenkins starts back up, it resumes that workflow and then waits to connect to the slaves in order to figure out it. Basically, what it's doing is it's like saying, here, we can look at the output. The output will show us what was happening. Okay, so right up. Yeah. So what we saw was resuming build, and it was waiting to resume on some, and finally it said, okay, these are offline, and then finally it got back. And
that master kind of whenever things are offline.
Yeah, this right here. And so that's when that flyweight build was basically the top level build. Basically was trying to reconnect to these build agents, and the build agent said, "Oh, we're done," and so continued on its merry way. So I think that's amazing. So let's see, how are we doing? Yeah, thank you. I was hoping there would be applause when I restarted Jenkins and everything was still working. What else do I want to show? Oh yeah. So like I mentioned, the best practice is to store all this stuff in code. Oh, that's not it. In GitHub and whatnot. But we'll take that one step further, and instead of you having to go in and create a job for each thing, Jenkins automatically reach out to GitHub and find your projects for you and start building it. That's kind of the ideal here. And so that's what we call organization folders. So I'm going to create an organization folder for my open source GitHub account, and it's going to scan my GitHub account looking for all the folders. Actually, there's a better one. TSE. Still around? Okay, great. So I'm going to use this actually. This organization that I set up that has a lot more going for it. Let's see. So, TSE demo. Of course, these will build, but it's pretty cool. So basically, I'm going to give it the organization, and if I had credentials, that might be good. Okay, we go. And so I'm going to say, okay, that's my organization, and we'll get into the details later. But basically, right away, it starts scanning that GitHub organization, looking for basic Jenkins files. It's looking for that marker file, a Jenkins file, and says, oh, I can build that, and actually starts trying to build it. You can see it's trying hard. Unfortunately, like none of the labels that these jobs need are set up, but here you can see there's my icon, and it's found a bunch of different things to build. But anyway, so I think that's pretty cool too. And what's even better about this is that these projects, I didn't have to go create each one. But it's also automatically creating multi-branch folders for them. So it's automatically tracking all the branches where it finds a Jenkins file. So my team creates new PRs or whatnot, then we can configure Jenkins to automatically pick those up and start building those.
But you can filter that list, right? I think you can only consider some branches, because you have a lot of little personal branches you don't want to waste.
There's a lot of control that you have in terms of deciding what gets built, and you actually the pull requests are called out here. But this is a powerful feature, and I think obviously brings it on par with a lot of the other similar stuff that's out there, and just makes the whole process of setting these things up easier.
Are you still only doing GitHub and Atlassian? Are those the only two?
That's right. It's GitHub and Bitbucket at this point.
What are CM systems or desired?
Yep.
I know that, but what I'm saying is if you have a heavy investment into version or something to Bitbucket.
Oh, so you can upgrade.
Yeah, right.
Right. So anyway, that's I think the stuff. I guess I can kill all this because it can't put that it wants to run.
You need a lot of Jenkins.
That back there.
Circular plugin that I showed you guys two M's ago to clear that out.
Yeah, I mean,
Eric, are you saying you'll get him out of the Jenkins?
Don't quit the day job.
all right. So that's my little intro to pipeline, and why I think it's cool, and hopefully I get enough to go back and kind of put yourself in trouble with.
How did it set up to be able to scan the organization, and it did all the things, like folders, jobs in the folder, and we had next to all the jobs. Customizable, so you mentioned the ability to customize it so that you don't have certain branches of the organization, or front or whatever. I can't. But is it possible to also have it to where you don't actually trigger jobs at that point? You just have the jobs get created so that they can manually be triggered at a later time?
That is a question.
Because I'm thinking about this as a way to be able to maintain effectively all of your configuration state practically for your jobs in Jenkins, and have the ability to maybe restore them all should you lose a master or something like that.
Right.
To set it up to start disabled. Like a further follow-on to that is basically, since with the organizational tree way of constructing all of your projects, by of what schedule to use for those builds and.
No, we have that in the.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, is there directives in the Jenkins file to set up the scheduling parameters? And
No, not really. The schedule, the triggering is, this is designed to be on commit, and we're using the GitHub build trigger. So you can, a workflow job, you can set up triggers outside of the, see, here's the build periodically, right? It's not, because the build trigger is not about the logic of the pipeline itself. It's about when the pipeline should run. I mean, I guess you could argue that some of that should go in there, but the choice we've made so far is basically that how build gets triggered should be in Jenkins itself, because like in general, we don't know what the current state of the Jenkins file is when this is being triggered. Anyway, there may be a better answer to that, but basically the answer is.
Because I might have
here.
jobs that I want to be like static code analysis jobs that are like intensive that I want to run nightly.
Yeah.
And so those might be, would those have to be just currently in Jenkins as standard freestyle jobs, or is there a way?
No, you would still make a pipeline job, and then you would use the build periodically instead of using the GitHub build commit trigger.
Default is the commit trigger, but you want something other than that, you have to go into the job and configure it.
I mean, if I had given this GitHub token my permissions, it would have automatically triggered this job on commit. So all that's happening right now is basically manual build or build periodic, except for the initial build. So questions that I've the answers for.
I guess the answer to my question is when you do that, it assumes that it needs to go build everything as initial build.
I'm pretty sure, yeah, right now it does an initial build of everything. I can go up with you on that, that'd be helpful.
Well, I'd like to figure it, because one of the things that I keep thinking about is how the capability, or how we could have the capability to effectively find everything that what a Jenkins master is in some form, right? So that I have all configuration states associated with that, configuration and state information about the Jenkins master or repository somewhere. And I like that the Jenkins files will contain sort of the job actions, but they won't necessarily contain like metadata. And that's the thing that's missing from the Jenkins files themselves. So that's, I guess, still somehow we have to go figure it out.
So there's the old school way before the organizational folders where you could use like the Jenkins job builder and some other tools where you could your whole definition, and then you can have a job watching that to go off, and when you make use to that, it could go and update all the other jobs. It templates for jobs and like that.
But that really creates like a chicken and egg problem.
Yeah.
You gotta know how to be able to create that initial job that goes in and watches all the other jobs, back them up. And if you don't have the ability to back that up somehow, you still have to have that knowledge manually.
Kosuke gave a talk at this jam.
Yeah.
The one talking about stateless Jenkins.
Yep.
Were you for that one? Or, oh, okay. Then maybe you're familiar with that topic. But you're hoping that this is the stateless Jenkins, but yeah.
Well, maybe that's the answer to it. Maybe you just don't worry about the stateless Jenkins scenario, or everything you need actually in the context of the job itself.
Right.
Yeah, that might be one.
But to your point, the organizational folders job is a job itself, so
Yeah.
you still in the end thing.
Yeah.
But that job is so simple that it would be trivial to
Yes.
connect through the module or through Ansible or through different ways of creating that job and create your master.
Right.
In my opinion.
Or maintain.
Well,
Right.
that's true.
I guess it's to the point where it's such little information is then stored in Jenkins that maybe it's easier to use those tools to do it.
And I think when you move to your cloud platform, when you've got some of your cluster things, there's the provisioning masters that could provision the base configuration in that first job from scripting, right? So that it comes up and it's already a fungible master.
Right. Yeah. Any questions?
I'm in on that.
All right, there's one.
When you do like a checkout to get automatically update the recent changes, I guess,
Right. It will clone. It'll do a pull if there's already a row, or it'll clone a new one. Yeah. Do the incremental, pull down the incremental change.
and so far it's what getting some version.
No, actually, it's extensible, and so I believe that there, besides getting subversion, there's at least one other one. It's usually so. Is it the case?
It's up to the plugin developers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the plugin developer's job.
I think you're right. Perforce.
ClearCase. Who uses ClearCase still?
Pipeline.
Worst.
Challenge you to clear.
In other words, using
Yes.
I mean, ClearCase is you don't have to download the entire report.
Oh, just like
Yeah,
a file URL.
file
That's
URL.
interesting.
So, yeah,
I can put that in.
Like a plugin,
Yeah.
you can, right.
I can put that. So that configuration can be on S3, so you just load it from S3.
yeah. Basically, there's built-in integration for Git and SVN, and there's this generic SCM step that lets you pass in. So here's Mercurial, and so I think this might be a path for supporting other SCMs, but I don't see a full listing of what those are. I believe, because it implements an API that exposes that. I'm doubly sure.
You're talking Jenkins file supporting each SC.
That's right.
And support anything that the plugin writer of the plugin who's updated to support Jenkins file API, right?
Yes. Right. Yes, that's true. So not a Jenkins file problem, so to speak, but it is a Jenkins user problem.
I believe when you pull down the helper, the script example, basically we call it, that's dynamically populated with the things that the plugins have already registered, right?
That's right. Yep.
I upgrade Jenkins, or you upgrade a plugin that supports it, that would tell you what it supports. So if an old plugin is not compatible with Jenkins file or the pipeline, then suddenly that maintainer added that capability, and you upgrade that plugin, it'll show you inside the ID. But if you have we go in that, we to mail form, you have to modify or change the file.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of come back to one of the questions. So here's the here's the thing of SCM supported in pipeline at this point. So
Blow it up 2 notches.
sure.
Pipeline, but the history though, I think is a more general thing, just in terms of plugins that populate the change history of the job.
I would be surprised if these can't populate the change history.
It's kind of a core thing, right?
I'm pretty that's part of implementing this.
So you're using something out there, raise your hand. What do you?
It means it's complete. So Dimension SCM is not complete for you.
DFS isn't complete.
Yes, there. I was there for 10 years. What? There for 10 years.
Back there.
But for 4 years, yeah. I had a painful experience. Then I recovered.
Promised Docker stuff.
Yes, Docker.
What
You're alive as well.
all right. Docker. You use Docker on a day-to-day basis. Wow. All right, that's good. All right. So don't take me down too hard when I try to explain it. But basically, what Docker is accumulation of like 20 years of R&D in the Linux kernel. But what it is from like it's process isolation, right? So it's a lightweight virtualization. You might contrast that with what you would call full virtualization or even parallelization. But in traditional full virtualization, I realize that I'm VMware, so please, it's basically simulating the hardware that's available to the operating system, and so to the image. And so the image has a full operating system, and it's presented with a virtual set of hardware to operate against. And so how Docker and lightweight virtualization is different is instead of like virtualizing at the hardware, it virtualizes at the kernel layer. So you know, if you had a bunch of VMware images running on a single machine, they're not sharing that operating system. But in basic lightweight virtualization, which is like C groups and all this other kind of stuff underneath Docker is basically sharing a single kernel, a bunch of other processes. And so processes, they all kind of need to work with that kernel, right? And so that's kind of the layer. And so the kernel is actually the one providing the isolation here. Docker just is really kind of leveraging what's already going on in the Linux kernel to make all that work. So that's a little deep, but it's good to know what's happening underneath. That, like, if you're at the top layer on a machine that's running a bunch of Docker instances and you go PS, you can see all of the processes that are running, whereas if it was VMware, you wouldn't be able to do that, right? So Docker provides that lightweight virtualization capability. It provides an image catalog so that I can, like, much like GitHub, instead of cloning a repo, I can build my image on someone else's image and reuse their expertise in whatever they're doing. So if they build the perfect Maven image, I don't have to learn that. And then it provides the image building itself, like a little language, a little DSL for defining how my image is built. And then Docker, when people say Docker, they also mean like the Docker ecosystem, which is Docker Machine, Docker Compose, Docker Swarm. The coolest to me is Docker Compose. I think it's if you have it around with Docker Compose, you owe it to yourself to like just down and play with it, because it lets you like a single file that defines how a bunch of Docker images or Docker containers interact with each other and allows them to talk to each other and share data and all this kind of cool stuff. So that's what, when people say Docker, they usually mean all of this stuff kind of together, mixed up. Docker loves Jenkins. If you didn't know, they have their own Jenkins instance. They use the Cloud official instance. We in Docker way back, so we're that cool. So categories, all right. So if you go to a Jenkins and you type in the word Docker, you get a lot of stuff. So let's see if I can just show you. Here's my. All right. So if I go manage plugins here and I look at what's available, and I just type in Docker, plenty of stuff. And actually, I've already got a bunch of stuff installed. But I kind of want to like give you a little bit of a roadmap perspective of this. Is that like the two categories? So one question is like one category is what can Docker do for Jenkins? So how can Docker make running Jenkins more scalable, more reliable, or whatnot? And then the other set of plugins are what can Jenkins do for Docker? So what Jenkins do to make it easier to build and test and deploy Docker images. Idea, like it's quite a bit of an investment in both sides. And so this area of folks may not care actually about deploying applications that use Docker, whereas these, may be running all of their builds theoretically on non-Docker agents. So let's go into the first category, which is like what can Docker do for Jenkins? And kind of the prime example of that is the Docker plugin. This was, I guess, the plugin that won the battle for the being called the plugin. But what it really is a cloud extension in Jenkins. Now, this is kind of exam material here. So, what a cloud plugin in Jenkins is. All right, people. All right. So usually when people say like a cloud plugin, what they mean is like a cloud extension. It implements the cloud extension point. So what it really means is dynamic slave or agent provisioning, right? So something that can talk to some API and provision new machines, maybe to VMware or EC2 or Docker, and spin new virtual nodes for Jenkins to run builds on. And so that's what the Docker plug does with Docker, is that it allows you to basically, the labels we were talking about before, associate those labels with images and automatically spin them up. So the idea is just to make it easier for you to manage your Jenkins environment, and to make it easier for you, instead of like having to, like I said about having all these pets, instead you have a bunch of like cattle holders, and Docker can spin up whatever flavor or image that that someone wants in that slot, versus you having to dedicate this to the Ubuntu image that the figures in the mobile department need or whatever. So that's kind of the Docker plugin. Really, that Docker plugin kind of kicked off a whole, and really, this whole area of computing is really interesting to me because I think it's something going rapid change in our industry right now, and I think it's going to completely redefine how we deliver applications over the next 10 years. And so, like, the technologies that are doing that are basically Mesos and Kubernetes, and Kubernetes is kind of the favorite child at this point. CS is similar, but that these are clustering systems that allow you to a whole bunch of servers that basically run Docker containers and give them some kind of API that you, much like you could spin up EC2 instances or VMware instances, they manage that hardware for you. And so there are ways to let you work with that stuff, basically, to let you automatically provision Docker or provision containers, and these are Docker containers running on these different things for you, and dynamically provision all that for you. But where this is going Jenkins-wise is Jenkins, I think, sees this coming and realizes that our current model for what's so funny? That our current model is kind of dated. The model of Jenkins slaves is like based on this idea that it's slow to spin up a machine, right? But what's cool about containers is they can start in a second, right? And if you can start something in a second, you don't need to keep it running. You can just have this very fluid. The whole point of these like Mesosphere and Kubernetes is like to allow your workload to dynamically adapt in like sense to what's needed. And so there's this plugin called the custom environment plugin, which like it's a mouthful. We used to call it the Okie Dokie plugin, but it's kind of an experimental plugin, but it uses this idea of one-shot executors. And the idea of a one-shot executor is that instead of like having a label where you can say any of these machines can work with this label, you basically, in the job, you say, this job needs image. And then like, use some back end to go provision that somewhere from your Docker Swarm or Kubernetes or whatever, and it ends up, in a second, and run that job, and it's done, and then it goes away. This is being thrown back into the pool to be used by other stuff. And so it's a lot cleaner. And so this is probably like where Jenkins is going over the next couple of years. I mean, it's obviously backwards compatibility is a big thing, but I think that it's a better model for the container world and really for the container cluster world.
Cool. Slaveless.
Slaveless? Okay. Well, we're trying to get rid of the word slave. Yeah, I'm trying to use the term agent.
No.
There.
It would be agentless, slaveless, silverless.
Is that for like Linux slaves? It's still not the case for Linux slaves?
Well, in a minute, Microsoft is going to have their Docker support, their lightweight virtualization. I mean, talking to a guy at Microsoft at the OpenStack conference, and he says Microsoft knows they have to have lightweight virtualization. So I guess the only one missing from that party at that point. Well, they're missing from that party, but turn on an operating systems. Yeah, so I think like Windows support at least. But you're right. There's always going to be the environment or slower start. So okay, so yeah, what I kind of want to get into and kind of do another live fire exercise for you is the Docker pipeline step, which lets you run a build inside an arbitrary Docker container, and then you can this is really for teams that are testing containers or building containers, and so it's really what this is for. This is like using Jenkins to make it easier to do Docker stuff. So I kind of want to demonstrate this because I think this is pretty cool. So let's say like we have this awesome project called All the Things, and we want to test it in a Docker environment. So let's just say, for example, that we want to make sure it works with Z Shell. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to move to to another environment where I could get Docker working. And so that's just my sad state. But so I'm going to create a new little job here that's going to make this this other version. So okay, so we're going to do all of the things in Docker. There it is. And we're going to do again just kind of the same pipeline from SCM. We're going to do Git and all the things. Let me copy this stuff back here. Or clone this. Yeah, that's what we want. Sorry, it's my list. All this stuff. Right, so we give it the power of GitHub repo, and so yeah, so pipeline script from SCM, all that's the same. And I guess we could go ahead and run it. Oh, it's going to work because it's going to try on my Mac later. So we need to fix this to run in the Docker world. Let's do that. Right, so let's make this and edit this. So come into this, and so instead of, we're going to have a node here, and this is a special label that's going to pull in from this club that I'm in, pull in a Docker capable machine. We need a machine with Docker on it to build Docker and at least some kind of Docker agent, right? So but still we're on that capable machine. We're going to check out our source code, and we can still actually what we want to do is not here. We want to check everything out still, but now we get to use the cool new Docker syntax. So we're going to say this is a special kind of built-in thing of Docker. So we're going to say Docker I think it's inch, and then, hang on, what is this? I have a little gift that reminds me what stuff is. Oh yeah, there it is. All right. Closing things. Okay, Docker image, and I'm going to check my syntax as well here. Image inside, right. And then, so basically what we're doing here is we're basically saying, all right, I want to talk to the Docker API, grab this image, and then run something inside of it. Just another pipeline, basically. So I still do hello world, all that kind of stuff, but I'm now doing this inside the Docker image. And so I think I have all my files here too, so I should be able to just run. Basically this image right here has Z shell in it, and that's my script, you know, that's checked out here. I'm going to run Z shell, all the things. .h, right?
So the checkout is not inside the image. It's
done in the workspace, and that I'm the same directory here, but I'm running inside the image.
so it shares that directory inside the Docker container.
Let's see what happens. My understanding is that it's mounting that directory into our Docker container and allowing us to run inside it. So basically, we can like bring it with us, but then use the versions of things that are available in there. So let's just see if my explanation is correct here.
So the cycle to run the machine that's providing the resource.
Well, in this case, the machine is running Docker, and so all the and Docker is spinning up the containers there on the same machine that I was originally running this on. But it could have been running remotely, a remote Docker agent.
And the bit has to fly over the net.
Yeah, I realized I was conflating things there. No, if it's using mounted volumes, it all has to be local. So I'm contradicting myself here.
I don't realize any of the above. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. Here we can. Here, let's do this. Let's like. So that it's less magic. So let's see. Oh, I got things on Docker, right? Okay.
If it doesn't matter, don't waste time.
Well, no, I think this will demonstrate, answer your question. Okay. So again, we check everything out as normal. Check out the file and Jenkins file up here, and then clone, do the checkout, and then you can see right here. Okay. So this is checking to see if I think we have the image, and it's actually already been pulled down, so we didn't get to see that.
It's saying the V.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Right. Exactly. This is the volume. It's right. So to answer the question, it's moving the directory, the workspace where Jenkins is running is being mounted into the Docker container via a volume. So they're basically looking at the same disk, and so all running on the same local machine.
That's how you make the results available to Jenkins.
Right.
You know where the colon is? Mounting that path on the host of the container into the container as Jenkins workspace. That box and whatever.
And then a read write path.
Yep.
Yeah. So then that means that, but then the remainder of this, one thing about this is, well, you can see the LS, so this is the files, but if we kind of go in here, this is more Docker than it is Jenkins, but it's kind of could look at a SH, yes, EF, I think this will work. And we'll see, instead of seeing Jenkins agent and that sort of stuff, we'll just see what's running inside the Docker container. So here's the what's running inside this Docker container is basically Z shell, and that's it. So this was outside the Docker container, which I guess we should have done for completeness. Yeah, you're right. Let's do that. Let's do it. So let's say PS. So here, let's do after. Okay. Well. So sh PS df. We'll be able to see when it's outside. And press save. And the sucker again. And so now we should be able to kind of see the difference. Okay, so so we clone the repo, and then here's outside the container. We can see the processes, and we specifically see Jenkins. I think, yeah, this is basically the slave, a JNLP slave that's running on there.
That's running on your whatever your cloud host.
This is running on the Docker, the Docker cloud host, exactly. With, yeah, a Mesos slave, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, but you can see, so this is a bunch of Java stuff, but it will get inside the container, no Java stuff running. Right? Yeah, we're just doing the Z shell in here. Back to everyone, kind of what's going on? Okay. So, all right, so now we're finally, we're testing our program on Z shell, and it works. So now what we want to do is, we want to ship a Docker container with program in it, right? So to do that, we have to build a Docker file. So I've coded a Docker file, just because for punishment, exactly. So Docker file, and I actually did this earlier today. So from, what are we from? This image, just thanks. Oh,
Container could be a microservice, or it could be.
Yeah, that's a good point. So like, that's kind of the idea. Is that as you're delivering containers for your applications, you know, you want to be able to like run tests on the actual container that you're delivering. That's the idea, right? Is that's why one of the reasons why containers are so cool is that I can test the image exactly as it's going to be in production, test the same thing in test or on my desktop or whatever. So,
Ryan,
yeah.
at the risk of feasible, could it be that that container was a DevOps stack or components in a DevOps stack? You do it like that. You want to keep your containers separate. Like,
yeah.
You want each layer is like very somewhat like enterprise. Right.
Yeah. Right. You might run GitHub Enterprise, but not. You wouldn't like up in the Jenkins environment. Spin that up like in some kind of like. I bet you in the future most enterprise applications will be delivered so they can be run in some kind of thing like Mesos or Kubernetes. But so in fact, that's what a lot of people are doing with Mesos is like being able to press a button and spin up applications. Like if you guys have seen the Mesosphere demo, like that's pretty awesome. So, but that's where you would spin up something like that your DevOps tool stack is in Mesosphere. Jenkins is what the images that you're spinning up are usually the software that you yourself are delivering. So anyway, let me continue here. Yeah, right, exactly. So so here we're going to say we're going to add a file, which then is from the local thing. It's all the things, and we're going to add that to all our the things. And oh yeah, and then I don't think it matters, but I'm going to say basically the command is these all the things. Right. There's my Docker file, and so now I'm going to change my Jenkins file to build that. and then test it. So I'm going to check out my SCM still. I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to say Docker build. What do I need? Kind of need to forget my syntax here. That's what I'm looking for. Let me get this right. Oh yeah, here we go. This is a little bit that I'm looking for. Right. So simply, what I'm calling the Docker API and saying, build. It's really an implicit the Docker file in this directory I'm in my current directory. I want to build an image called all the things with a snapshot label on it. And that right there is a line. I could put a semicolon there just to emphasize that. And then that is my all the things image. All the things image. And so then instead of this builds that image locally. It doesn't publish it. I could do att-image.push. And I'm sure that's all I would need to do then to, if maybe, actually I'm not sure how that works exactly, to be honest with you, but.
The Docker registry, is that what that?
Right, push to the registry, but I might need to have environment variables set in order for it to know which one to push it to and the credentials.
You're authenticating to it and all that.
So a shot though is that if you continue to build again, it's just replacing the snapshot image in the registry.
No, it's replacing the label. So it's adding particularly new layers to the repo, but it's just saying every time you do it, it's realigning that label. Right. In your head, was I saying something wrong back there?
No.
Okay. Okay. Right. Nothing is right.
If you change your all the things .shell, is that going to rebuild the image, or they're going to stay?
So what I'm saying is, if I change all the things .shell, then yes, basically Docker in the add step, it will see the hash change. Right. So where was I? I was editing this thing. I think this is the right one here. Oh, it's right there. You were right. Let's close that. Okay. Right. So instead of using that, now I want to test this, right? So what I'm going to do to test it is I'm going to say this that we just built. I'm going to run something inside of it. I'm instead of testing what's in the local directory, I'm going to test again like the one that's that I did in all the things sh. If everything works correctly. What's that?
List your root directory.
All right. Right. So let's give that a spin and see how she flies. Let's see what happens. Okay. So allocating a node. This is over. This is working fine.
So is the Docker file in the same repository?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. It just looks for that.
Yeah. So I have an error in my Docker file, and it can't find all the things.
After the
Right. Oh wait, this is in my Docker file here. Let me.
Better than pairing. He's doing deca pairing here, and none of us got that.
Yeah, come on, guys. What's the deal?
Mob coding.
All right, so let's see what happens this time. Oh, I think it's 6, right? Okay, let's kind of see what happens. Up right here. So basically, all that fancy stuff resulted in this command line being run, which is Docker build, all the things, you can see it right there. And then it pulled in the base, added our file, and then added the commands. Basically, here's for the root. So you can see all the things is at the root of the file system, and when we run it like that, we know we're running that file. And Docker image. All right. Hey. Thank you. Well, we didn't publish it, but sorry. But I can talk a little bit about what Jenkins can do there. Did I have a couple of slides on that. There's a few other things that Jenkins can do for Docker, and so basically the building and the publishing are basically all in there in pipeline. You can all do that in freestyle jobs just as easily. Then there's once you publish something to Docker Hub, there's also a cool thing called Docker Hub notifications, which allow you to kind of build chains of images, so that if someone upstream updates their image, you can have builds kicked off and to maybe test those images or build downstream images based upon those upstream images. So that's a pretty neat little kind of thing. It's kind of like a GitHub trigger, but it's a Docker Hub trigger. And then so that'll notify Jenkins. And then there's also a traceability component. So whenever you deploy start a Docker anywhere, you can have it ping back to Jenkins to say this is running here, this image is running here, and so then when you go to look at an image in the Jenkins fingerprint database, you can see where that image is potentially running. You know, if you allow your production environments to talk to Jenkins to do this ping back, you can where it's running and what builds it has been involved in, and what tests has been run against it, and so forth. So you get a full kind of historical view of this image. And so that's actually one of the, in my opinion, one of the less well-known features of Jenkins is this fingerprint database that allows you to track artifacts through multiple lines and that sort of thing, so that you can see, okay, what went into this image that's now running over here in production. So on this particular box in production that was deployed at 8 a.m. this morning. So that's the Docker traceability, and also like Chef traceability and Puppet traceability modules if you're interested in those. So that's kind of more of the Jenkins Docker thing. I realize it's late, but I'm going to keep going because you're still sitting here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think is cool. So one thing I think is cool is Blue Ocean. Raise your hand if you've heard of Blue Ocean. All right, so Blue Ocean is kind of like, it's all open source, so I'm not like, well, anyway. So this is kind of where we're going, I think, with the UX. Oh, it's not. Oh, what happened?
Beautiful interface. Look at that. Goodness, you must have build problems. Okay. Okay. Of course, the report.
Right. So, so kind of where we're going, and so you can kind of see it's a much simpler interface. But
hey,
yeah.
You kill PowerPoint because the guys on the call can't see that now.
Okay. No PowerPoint.
Just presentation.
I see. Okay. That was the problem.
Mirror again.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Are we back to normal? So here's an example of a project, and so most of the configuration is going to be done in Jenkins file in this glorious future. And so we have, these are our builds. We have branches and pull requests, And so you can see this is very the same, but the idea is all kind of built in a more modern architecture, with basically using what we call in the day AJAX, what is, I guess a REST API in the back end, and so, but yet still designed to be modular and extensible in the Jenkins tradition. So I think that's a big part of what Blue Ocean is about, is to build a modern user experience architecture for Jenkins going forward that's centered on pipeline and that sort of thing. I mean, I think, you know, the way this is probably going to roll out is kind of an add-on to Jenkins. If a lot of end users who are saying, you know, that this is, they basically take everything to pipeline and want a simplified experience based upon that. And so that's where we're going with it. So you can see kind of the pull requests, and here, I guess, kind of a little digging down deeper into the thing, so we can see the console, we can see the change that went into it. No artifacts. Anyway, so that's I think what's interesting, and that's still baking. I think it's going to officially or something like that soon. We're doing a lot in the open source community, and so that's definitely an open source kind of
That's quite
familiar with Circle CI. Right. I would say that you know, the guy who kind of is the primary designer of this comes from Atlassian, and so brings a lot of tradition, and so that may be some interesting in there too. So anyway, so that's Blue Ocean. I knew more about it, but I think it's beautiful. The thing I think is interesting is our private SaaS edition, which you're talking about the cluster container stuff, or the you know, Mesos, and it's basically a Jenkins provisioning system. We call it private SaaS edition, but like an easy way to spin up a Jenkins cluster without having to manage hundreds of masters. And so we basically take care of all the Mesos provisioning and dynamically spinning up those build machines on that Mesos cluster for you. So I guess like what of a I've got a link to it. Not working. I'm running out of time. So anyway, and then the other things I want to mention is maybe you've all heard of Jenkins certification, but it's a great way to kind of make self-official and get some recognition for all the time that you've put into building your Jenkins expertise. And there's study guides and whatnot available, and so you can basically study for it and get a certification. I hope you can all make it to the Jenkins World, which is coming up September 13th through 15th in Santa Clara. There's 3 community tracks, which I'm really excited. A lot of community content coming in this one, and so it's really designed to be a community-oriented event, and hope you make it.
Who's going to Jenkins World?
Go.
Raise your hand. I will go.
you will not. I have a discount code.
I
He has one too. But as either me, we can get you 30%. I don't know what your
depending on who and what you are, there might be other options.
Every year except the second one, I think. And this year I've got a conflict with my wife.
One of the things that helps is
No, not you.
we're already thinking about investing a little bit in Jenkins certification as a part of the Jenkins World. We can take part in the certification. That's part of the package. Currently, there's only 2 weeks now.
Yeah, so right now there's basically an engineer exam there's the open source track and the Jenkins platform track. So basically there's 2 exams basically right now, but there'll be an architect for both. Italy. Yeah.
You made it for that, like they did.
I would. Yeah.
And Ryan, if I could steal the show for just a second, I'm our local sales rep for Clubbies. I'm gonna my car. If you guys want a T-shirt, the Jenkins Master full T-shirt, just send your
size, your address, and I'll get to you. If you want a Jenkins World, discount, and we'll help you with that. And some stickers for everybody too. Okay, yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Mark.
Can you post your contact info to the Meetup group?
I will.
Anyone? Well,
Really late, but I'm here till closing. Have Jenkins questions in general, I'll be happy to answer it, and yeah, got a question down here.
Yeah, so what are some of the limitations that you have? We've invested heavily with GitLab, and migrating away from GitHub.
I was playing GitLab for a while.
Medical software.
Only over $10.
Yeah.
So what are some of the limitations that you run into
We've been
with
using
that?
Jira and
Yeah, well, so I think most of the things will work fine, actually. I guess, repository scanning works with GitHub, because that uses the GitHub API. But, I mean, you can still, configure